Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Luminescence LORCANA. And today I do have a deck guide for you guys for this upcoming weekend of set championships. I did pilot this deck to a third place finish at a 35 player set champs. I think it was just over 32 players. It performed tremendously well, and it was a very competitive event overall. Of course, the first weekend usually always is. There was a lot of good players there, and I think that this deck performed tremendously well. So I did want to go ahead and just make a video for those of you that are looking for maybe a deck to run that is very consistent to set champs, to make sure you guys get that Scar promo. I did get mine, and it is beautiful, and I hope that you guys have success in getting yours over the next couple of weeks. So I'm going to get into the deck tech. I'm going to go over my matchups and talk about maybe some things that I would have changed. But getting into just the deck list first, so we can go over it. It's pretty standard Amber Steel deck, but I want to talk about why some of the choices I've made and maybe why I would change some of the choices I made. But just getting into the list, obviously in the one drops we have 4 of the Cinderella Ballroom Sensation. Amazing card, and you need to make sure that you have it in your hand to sing those songs on turn 2. And then we have 4 Robin Hood Beloved Outlaw, great card as well as 4 of Daisy Duck Donald Date. Getting into the 2 drops, we have 3 of the Lilo Escape Artist, 3 of the Ursula Vanessa, and 4 of the Mr. Smee Bumbling Mate. Getting into the 3 drops, we have 4 of the Ariel Spectacular Singer, 2 of the Gaston Baritone Bully, 4 of the Peak Games Referee. These are the 3 drops, and I think that I wouldn't really add much more 3 drops. I know that a lot of people say the 3 drops are very, very important, but I think that the amount that I have there is good. Getting into the 4 drops, we got 2 of the Prince Naveen Ukulele Player. We have 4 of the Rapunzel Gifted with Healing. And then in the 5 drops, we have 4 of the Robin Hood Champion of Sherwood. Now, obviously, it's pretty standard, but the important part of this deck is, of course, the songs. That's what this deck is all about. And we have 2 World's Greatest Criminal Mind, 4 of Let the Storm Rage On, 4 Strength for Raging Fire, 4 And Then Along Came Zeus, and 4 A Whole New World. So this is the list that I was running, and I'm going to get into my matchups right now. We're going to go ahead and talk about it. So I did start the day off by playing red-purple. I was on the draw, lost the die roll, but I was still able to 2-0 them. That game was pretty standard in terms of, like, I hit my Cinderella in game 1, and I hit my Cinderella in game 2, and it's very, very difficult for a red-purple player to kind of counteract that. They were playing a pretty basic red-purple list, not much different. The Elsa's and everything were in there, and it was just, I was just able to execute my game plan and Whole New World them on turn 3 after playing a pretty aggressive start to the game. I think in game 1 I played Cinderella, Daisy, and then on turn 3 I played Gaston. Gaston's really good into anything that has a ruby, because if you play Ariel, it's most likely going to get brawled. So having that Gaston have that 3 willpower is very difficult for any ruby deck to deal with, and it also kind of propels you. If you've got a Whole New World in your hand, you can be really aggressive in the first 2 turns and go, like Cinderella, Daisy, Gaston, Whole New World, and then from there, it's very difficult for a red-purple list unless they hit the D prep, but by then you're probably going to end the game before turn 7 anyway. So I executed my game plan exactly how I was supposed to in that one. And then the following round, I misplayed terribly. It was probably my worst performance on the day. I was going into a great player. He is a good friend of mine and a very good player, but I should have handled that matchup entirely better than I did. Game 1, I mulliganed very heavily and it ended up having a very uninkable hand and was stuck with Naveen and a Whole New World in my hand, but I had no ink to actually utilize it, and by the time I did, they had already put 3 Flynn Riders on the board, And when I whole new worlded, I did not get any removal for the Flynns. So they were just gaining lore each turn, and I could not keep up. And then in game 2, they did the exact same thing and put 2 Flynn Riders down, and I miscalculated where they would get the following turn, put them in goat bounce range at that 18 lore mark, and they just goat bounced and it was over. So it was a very unfortunate play, and it was probably the worst game I played on the day. I was very, very unfortunate in that. I was played very poorly in that match, and it cost me. But fortunately, I learned from it and locked in, and was able to win pretty much the rest of the day. Going into round 3, we played into a blue-purple, and we were on the draw. I was worried about this, to be honest with you. When I went into the match, I definitely thought I was going to lose, but my opponent seemed to have had in game 1, seemed to have had a hand where they were kind of locked in. They weren't inking, and they had like 3 cards left in hand, and each turn they were just kind of playing whatever they drew. So I could kind of guess that they had an uninkable hand that wasn't helping them. So I was not going to whole new world and give them a ton of new tools. I was just going to play my threats. So I played Cinderella, and then I was able to play Lilo, and then I think I had a Pete to deny them from ramping, and then from then I was just playing threat after threat. Whatever I top decked, I would make sure I play, and I think I top decked a couple of daisies. I even had a Naveen and Whole New World in my hand, and I played Naveen without playing the Whole New World, just because I knew that they had an uninkable hand. I was able to take game 1, and from then you kind of get the advantage of, I was obviously on the play, I'm on the draw, sorry. So I was able to take the advantage back of, if it went to game 3, I know that I get to go first game 3. But going into game 2, they kind of ran into the same problem. I think their list was probably unoptimal. Even though they performed well in the day, I think they finished just outside of top 8. I don't think that list was very optimal. And I was able to take game 2 pretty comfortably by doing the same kind of thing and just playing a really aggressive kind of game plan and letting them, play out their hand. I was lucky that they didn't really hit their draw engine at all in either games, and so I had Whole New World, but both games I just did not want to play it because they were not able to really ink and play a threat, so I was able to just keep playing my threats and got through the game pretty confidently. It was a nice game, to be honest with you. That one, I was very impressed with how the deck performed. I was able to keep my hand full, utilizing Rapunzel and Robin Hood. I shift into Robin Hood in game 2, and they attacked with a Fox, but we're going to finish it the following turn, but I was able to heal with Rapunzel and kind of get more threats, and then play more threats, and just kind of outpace them. Even without the Whole New World, this deck can be very aggressive, and you can kind of just say to your opponent, I'm going to outpace you to the best of my ability, and I'm going to keep going and keep going and keep playing these really aggressive cards, and if you have no removal for them, then I'm going to hit 20 before you do. So I was very impressed with how it played. Blurple has not been a great match for Amber Steel in the past, but I think that this deck actually did very well against that specific player, and they are a very good player, so I was very happy with that. And then going into round 4, we drew into another red-purple player, and I was able to 2-0 them on the play. Again, against red-purple, it's very, very easy to just go heavy mulligan for that Cinderella, and then turn 1 Cinderella, and then they will, even if you don't have a song most of the time, if you play that Cinderella on turn 1, they might skip turn 1, which just gives you a massive advantage. But I learned from my lesson in the past game, and I didn't take out that 1-drop. With Cinderella, I waited, because on turn 2, that Flynn came down, and I was able to use that Psalm on the Flynn instead of using it on the Chernobog's followers, which really secured me the game. And then from there, I utilized the Naveen on turn 4. So a turn 4 Whole New World, after playing threat after threat after threat, is very, very good against red-purple. It is very hard for them to deal with. And then I was able to just kind of go very wide and, kind of call my opponent and say, If you've got the B prep, great, but if you don't, I'm going to win next turn. So that's what game 1 went, and game 2 went very similarly. If you can just go very wide and aggressive and make your opponent have the B prep, it's very hard for them to do anything about. And the one thing I will say about this specific round, the red-purple player had a very hard time with Gaston. I did play in game 1, I did play Ariel on 3 to find a whole new world, and then they just brawled it. But I was lucky enough to have a Naveen in hand, so I knew that turn 4 I was playing that whole new world with a Naveen. But the fact that they waste a turn on a brawl is sometimes very useful. So sometimes playing that Ariel against a red-purple player, especially when you're on the play, can be very, very good, because you kind of make them waste that turn 3 on brawling. And if you have that Naveen in hand, then if you find the whole new world with Ariel, they've wasted a turn 3 on a brawl that it doesn't matter anyway. They took out the Ariel, but you're still going to play in that Naveen and go ahead and sing the whole new world. So I think that Naveen is very good against red purple, because if they do decide to brawl your Ariel, you can just play on turn 4 and get the whole new world up anyway. And then in the second game, instead of Ariel, I had Gaston. So they knew there was nothing they could do about it, and they had to just accept the fact that on turn 4 I was going to whole new world. And then from there, I was able to go very aggressive. I think my hand after the whole new world was like 2 daisies and 2 Lilos and a couple songs. So it was very easy for me to just slam everything I had down and say, I'm going to win by the time that you can get to turn 7 anyway. So it's pretty much wraps for them at that point. And then in round 5, I was able to ID into top 8, avoiding probably one of the best players at the tournament. So I was very happy that I could ID into top 8. And then as we got into top 8, I played a mirror on the draw. I will say that the opponent's list was a little different than mine. I don't believe they had any Naveens. They were playing the Donald Duck Bodyguard, and they were playing Piglets. And I was just able to whole new world first. I don't think they had a whole new world in their opening hand, and they didn't find it off the Ariel. So I was able to whole new world first, and then from there be very aggressive. This deck is built to be a little bit more aggressive with the daisies and such. And I was also able to quest with the daisies and let them draw a lot of cards and then wheel them away, which is a very, very good thing about playing Daisy in the list with Whole New World versus like a Diggy Hole deck is if you slam a Daisy on turn 1 and then slam a Daisy on turn 2, like slam 2, like I think again in one of my matchups I played 3 Daisies on turn 2. I had 3 Daisies on the board. And then on turn 3, I was able to play a Gaston with a Whole New World and had knowing that on turn 4, I'm going to wheel away whatever they're drawing from these daisies, which ended up being a lot of cards. And then they're out of luck because all of those cards that they just drew are just gone, right? So I think that the daisy is very powerful in a Whole New World list because she really allows you to affect your opponent's hand size so that when you're Whole New Worlding, you're getting the most value out of it, right? So you're discarding so many cards from your opponent. I think at one point my opponent maybe had like 9 cards in hand and I had none. So it was an immediate advantage, especially against this specific matchup in Amber Steel. It seemed like every time I was questing with Daisy, it was revealing a character instead of a song. And I think I got like 2 of their Rapunzels and an Ariel, which is very, very good. And then you just wheel it away and start to go wide with your side of the board, especially since they don't have a board wipe. You know that if you go really wide against it, it's very hard for Amber Steel to deal with. Even myself as an Amber Steel player will acknowledge that it's very, very hard to deal with. And then unfortunately in my top 4 match, I drew against the only other Blurple player at the event. And I was on the play. Game 1 was what I think lost me the mat. I heavy mulliganed trying to find a song for my Cinderella, and I ended up getting Cinderella and I think I took Robin Hood, and then I had like 3 Zeuses and a Naveen. My hand was like super uninkable to the point where like turn 2 and turn 3, I didn't have anything to ink and I had nothing to play. So I would say that my mulligan cost me in the first round. The second round where I was on the oh, sorry, I said on the play on this one. I was actually on the draw for the first round. They were a higher seed than me, so they got to go first. And then second game, I was obviously on the play, and I was able to, I think it was like 20-1. I was able to just be very quick and get around my opponent. And then in the final match, my opponent got to go first, and I think he kind of knew his win condition was getting things down that I could not remove. So on turn 4, he played McDuck Manor, and on turn 5, he played McDuck Manor, having already a pretty wide board that I was trying to deal with. And when the manors come down, it kind of becomes a race, and I was not getting anything aggressive enough to kind of compete in that race. So I was unfortunately eliminated there, and the Blurple player did go on to win the entire tournament. So I'm not as upset about that, but I definitely think that if my mulligan had been better in game 1, I should have won against the Blurple player and made it to the final. Although in the final was another Amber Steel player, and they were playing flutes, so I think I would have struggled there. But hey, at least I would have gotten a mat. But I do want to now talk about maybe the things I would change going into this next week of set championships, because I am going to be playing probably a very similar list to this. But honestly, one of the biggest underperformers of my event would be Robin Hood. I literally only got my 3rd and 4th one recently. I was lucky enough to find some Inklands packs at the store, and I pulled 2 Robin Hoods out of like 10 packs, so I was pretty happy about that. But I thought I'd give him a go, and he seemed to underperform in comparison to the Queen. I think that she's very easy for Ruby decks to deal with the 3 strength. Medusa can hit him, and I think that going into like a steel match, yeah, it's going to be hard for them to remove him with that 6 willpower, but most of the time in steel, they're going to make sure that the last hit is from removal, so you don't get that draw from him. So I do think that he underperformed on the weekend. I think that he maybe gained me like 6 lore total in all of my matches. He was definitely an underperformer, and I would consider going into this new weekend cutting him for the Queen shift line. And the reason I say the Queen shift line is because a turn 2 whole new world is so detrimental to many decks, and they don't expect it, right? So my recommendation for a lot of people that are going into this weekend would be maybe cut the Robin Hoods for the Queens. People are not going to expect it. And that turn 2 whole new world, especially if you've got a couple Lilos in your hand, can just devastate most decks, especially if you're on the play and your opponent, obviously they keep their hand, or they mulligan their hand to find their best cards, and if you can wheel that away after turn 2 before they've really utilized a lot of those cards, you can really damage your opponent's game plan, especially if that hand that they draw into is not what they need. You can really damage your opponent's game plan. And not only that, I think the Queen adds some location removal with that ability, where if you quest, you can give something 4 strength. I think that would have helped me a lot in the Blurble matchup, taking care of those McDuck Manors. It would have, given me the ability to boost some of my character's stats to take out that McDuck Manor, as well as it always makes World's Greatest Criminal Mind better by, giving your opponent's characters more strength and then eliminating them without World's Greatest Criminal Mind. So I definitely think that maybe that would be something I consider cutting. I would not cut any Naveens. I know people have been cutting Naveens lately. I've seen a lot of decks cut them completely. A lot of decks go down to 1. I think that 2 is an optimal amount. I think if you only have 1 Naveen in your list, you're really hoping that you hit that Naveen. And if you don't hit that Naveen, then it's kind of just a waste, right? And if you top deck that 1 Naveen and you don't have a song in hand, then he's even worse. So I think that 2 Naveen's is good, and it really gives you the ability to, if you have a whole new world in hand and you want to keep it, and you need a singer, it gives you that ability to draw into maybe more. I would maybe in a universe cut the Naveen's for 2 more Gastons, but I still think the Naveen is so much better because you get immediate impact from him. You play 4 and you get that immediate whole new world, and he's also great in the late game when you have a lot of ink. Like if you have 8 ink in the late game, you can pay 4 for Naveen, play the whole new world, and then you still have 4 ink left over to when you get that fresh hand to be aggressive, right? To go Daisy, Lilo, Robin Hood, or Daisy, Cinderella. It gives you that ability to go really aggressive and go really wide, and I think that is a reason why I really like that Naveen in there. Other than that, there's not too many changes I would say I would make. I would like to find a spot for a 4th Ursula Vanessa. I think that on turn 2 is just so good, especially if you need to kind of control the board more. If you're playing against maybe a more aggressive deck, or if you're playing against, even a purple deck that, you're on the draw and they play a Sisu, or if you're playing against red purple, if they play a Sisu on 3, you're able to, Zeus that Sisu away and not worry about it. So I definitely would think that I would like to add 1 more Ursula Vanessa, but I'm not too sure. I wouldn't cut any Petes. I've seen some decks go to 3 Petes. Pete saved me so many times. There was a point in time where against a red-purple player where it was like turn 7 and I had 2 Petes in hand, and I knew that I was just going to play 1 Pete and then the next turn play another Pete and protect my board from a board wipe, and just from there I was able to just quest aggressively to win. So I think the only change I would really make would be to get rid of that Robin Hood for the Queen Shift package. I think that the Robin Hood himself may be a little overrated. The ability when you banish a character gain 2 law is great in essence, but his 3 strength really lets him down. So I think that maybe the Queen Shift package, it was something I'm going to look at going into this week's set champs, and to see maybe if that will help me propel further into 1st or 2nd place. The matchups you want to worry about with this deck is obviously blue-red. But in my testing of this deck, I found that if you are on the play against blue-red with this deck, you can kind of be aggressive, and you can. There are many instances where this deck can beat blue-red. Especially the newer versions of it. Obviously with that 2 World's Greatest Criminal Mind for that Maui Half Shark. So I definitely think that a lot of people's reservations to playing this list because, it's an instant loss to blue-red, is definitely untrue in some circumstances. You can definitely beat blue-red. Unfortunately, I was not able to prove that this tournament because I did not run into any, but I think that a lot of set champs will be full of red-purple right now after its performance in the NA championships. So I think that this deck is a great bring because this deck does farm red-purple. I know that I got O2'd by a red-purple, but again, that was massive misplays by me. But other than that, I played red-purple 3 times on the day and 2-0'd it twice. And these are best of 3s, so the fact that I was able to just 2-0 so many opponents this weekend, I think I only played 1 game all set champs that actually went to game 3. I was able to 2-0 the rest of them. So I do think that this deck is very, very strong, and I hope that you guys take it to your set champs and do successful with it. I hope you guys win a Scar. I hope you guys win a playmat, and I wish you guys best of luck going into this weekend of set champs. I will hopefully be back very soon with a couple more videos for you guys. And let me know in the comments if there's any videos outside of deck techs that you guys want me to do. I don't mind looking at tournament winning lists and analyzing them. And I don't mind, going over mulligan guides for different decks. I do play a variety of decks. I will say that I am most knowledgeable on Amber Steel, but again, I play a variety of decks. So I wish you guys best of luck for this weekend going into set champs. Go get those scars, and I will see you guys very soon with another video. Peace.